Hi everybody, welcome back to Brand Tip Tuesday with Tammy Zurak. Today I'd like to introduce you to Sue Bryce. She is an internationally recognized multi-award winning portrait photographer, and among her most prestigious awards was being named as a Canon Explorer of Light. Her background in photography spans 28 years, and her work in glamour, fashion, and portrait photography have transcended past stereotypes. She's literally changed the face of portrait photography. Sue has also created her own education platform using her signature techniques to educate and empower photographers around the globe, including me. And Sue's, side by side to Sue's educational site, she runs a Facebook group that currently has 45,000 photographers worldwide. Sue was born in New Zealand, and she now lives and works in Los Angeles. I have the great pleasure of not only serving as one of 9 mentors in Sue's group, but also calling her my friend. I now bring you Sue Bryce. Welcome.
Yay, thank you so much. That was so cool.
Well, you have a wonderful background, and I'm excited to interview you because I've been with you for 5 years now. It doesn't seem like it's been that long, but but I want to pick your brain about branding today because I think you're the master, and I love learning from the masters. So I'm going to jump right in. I think you really have 3 brands. You have a portrait photography brand, you have an educational photography site brand, and I see you now moving into what I don't know exactly what I'd call it besides a self-help wellness. You're kind of the Tony Robbins of the photography world right now, but I see you kind of moving outside photography world because what you do in that arena is really for everyone. So can you tell us how you see those brands working together and how you've leveraged one brand into the other?
It's quite weird because as a portrait photographer, I was having conversations with people every single day about their self-value and their self-image, because that was a big part of photographing people. As they stand in front of you, you get the camera and they get very nervous. And then all of a sudden you're having these deep, intense conversations with people about how they feel about themselves. And I was going through that personally as a woman. So I was building my portrait business and also going through my own self-value issues. And then when I started my own self-business in my garage where I was self-employed, I realized after 12 years of being a photographer, I couldn't actually make money on my own, out on my own. And I really didn't value making money. I didn't value myself. I didn't value my time or my product or my service. And so I then related the self-value to making money and being in business and being confident enough to put yourself out there and go to networking events when you're just absolutely socially anxious and crippled by the idea of pitching your business to people.
Which is a lot of people, right?
Most people. It's 95% of people literally don't know how to put themselves out there, which really, when you break it down, it's not so much where do I go, it's how do I do this?
Right.
Because they don't own their voice, they don't own their power, they don't own their service, they don't own or value their power and service. And so I found with my own journey that the self-value was a bigger component in building a business than the technician skill of running a business, although that is a huge part. And then, of course, you have to be this wear every hat solopreneur that does everything like marketing and selling and production and technician and entrepreneur. And before you know it, you just get overwhelmed. And if your bottom line is, I don't feel good enough to serve people, then you can imagine that you're not going to attract very good clients into your life. So I kind of feel like my brands cover everything that I do anyway, but they are just for what everybody needs.
Right. You mentioned solopreneur, and a lot of people that are going to be listening to this are that solopreneur, and things might be tight for them. I'm sure you remember back, not so far off ago, perhaps when things were tighter and you had to try to figure out how to do everything. What would you tell somebody kind of in that position is the best thing to do to build their brand on a budget? Maybe what they should spend money on and what they shouldn't spend money on?
So, interestingly enough, when you become more practiced, you have more staff, you have less time. Time is the magic thing that we all want. And I can buy now time back. So I can pay people to do things for me that I could not afford to pay people to do in the first 4 years of my business.
Right.
So in the first 4 years of my business, the most magical power you have is your time, but unfortunately that is finite. And when you have a family, that time is even more limited. So every moment you get, you must take it. But at the same time, you must manage who's getting your time, because the time is the biggest thing. When I couldn't afford to buy time off people, when I couldn't afford to outsource, my time was everything. And the time that I spent on social media, connecting personally, responding to emails, talking to people, responding to threads, staying on threads, really being a presence in my group, being a presence on my Facebook page, I would do that at every waking moment. If I was watching a movie, I was also on Facebook. If I was waiting in the doctor's room, I was also on Facebook. Yeah. If I was sitting in the car waiting for someone, I was on social media. So the time is everything, because I can't afford to outsource this yet, but I will find the time. Also, there are so many ways to achieve something, and we get stuck on this one track. Like, we tell ourselves there is only one way this can be done, and it's this way, and that's not true. So what I started to do was I called it drop and give me 20. Whenever I couldn't think of a way creatively out of the situation or a way around the situation, like let's say I want to outsource somebody writing something for me, but I cannot afford the $1,500 for somebody to write this. I would look for a writer that needed portraits, or I would look for a writer that needed photography for their business, or I would look for somebody I could swap with and exchange my skill set with when money was not an option. And there is always a way. So I know it feels like that there isn't, but you're not being creative and coming up with a solution as to how. And there is always somebody that needs you, and you need them. So you just keep putting it out to the universe. Every conversation I'd have, I'd say, I'm currently looking for a designer. I'm currently looking for a web designer. I really love somebody that needs my photographic skills because money is tight right now, but I can give this way. Or I'm looking for a writer, or but exchanging for time and making sure that that's always an equal balance.
Well, and I think, not everyone listening to this will be a photographer. So some people don't consider themselves creatives. So maybe they need to figure out how to get with somebody who is creative to, maybe that's the exchange is I'll do what you need, whatever they offer, and find someone who is creative to help them generate ideas so they can get the things done that they need. So I love that.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're a business coach, you can give coaching. If
Exactly.
You're a life coach, you can give coaching. If you're a masseuse, you can give massage.
Totally.
It's always something you can give, and you can meet halfway.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like what you said is we kind of get stuck on that track. We can only do this thing, and I can't do this thing because I don't have that resource, but there's a way to get it done if you just think it over.
Always. Yeah, and I think as a solopreneur, you're going to learn so many skills that you didn't think you would have to learn to be successful in business. And there are so many ways you can do that. If you think about everything you learn about social media, nowadays most teenagers could teach you everything we know about social media because they grew up with social media. We did not grow up with social media. And, it's everything is available to you right there in front of you to learn.
Completely. So my next question for you is, you came from a different background than a lot of business folks. You didn't have a corporate big business background. You started as a solopreneur, kind of one owner. You learned from someone else, and then you went and did your own thing. But I see you now in your education side, and you're really starting to move towards that bigger business type of feel. How has that changed how you manage your brand?
It's so funny. I didn't finish high school, so I didn't actually get a tertiary education of any form, and I certainly didn't do anything in business. And my parents were hard workers. They were not business owners, so I knew nothing about business, and I really fell in love with business. Like, business itself is something that I became very obsessed about. And as my business grew and grew and grew, I honestly, it's no different than it was. A small business is no different than a big business. The only difference is you're managing a lot more people.
Right.
You're definitely, and managing people is an incredible skill set. It's not something that many people do well. You're managing people. It's no different. The money management is no different. You're just making bigger decisions on money. I still feel very much like that I run my business intuitively. If something doesn't feel right, I'll pause and I look at the big picture. I take more time to walk away from big ideas or big maybe challenges, and I process them a little slower than what I used to when I was in a smaller business with 2 staff. And I make big picture goals, but increments. We have these big dreams, but the truth is it's not a lotto win. You don't get it overnight. It's just little increments. If you want to put your pricing up, you put it up in increments. If you want to grow, you grow in increments. And then you don't really notice the growth so much. You kind of wake up one day and you're like, wow, I have 18 staff and we have a medium-sized business now. Yeah. It's not a small business. Do I want a big business? No.
Right. Well, it's interesting. I was thinking about this conversation we were going to have, and I remember your early interviews you had the mentors over, and we did a class, and there were, 9 or 10 of us that were the audience, and I just came from Palm Springs with you, where I was in the back of the room and there were 400 people sitting there. So, it's that, I think that's that increment thing you were talking about. It's really, I look at my own business and say, 4 or 5 years ago, I was doing small things, and you kind of take a little walk along the path and you maybe go a different direction, but it keeps growing, so it's kind of exciting.
You know what, so there's 2 things that I think I changed. One of them was when I first started my small garage business, and it grew very fast. Within 4 years we had 10 staff and we were turning over close to $1 million. I remembered thinking, I just want to keep growing and getting bigger, growing and getting bigger, and growing and getting bigger. And the first year when we turned over 500,000, and then 4 years we turned over $1 million, I wasn't making more money personally.
Right.
And my studio was bigger, and my staff was bigger, and my brand was bigger, and the world was saying, oh my gosh, you're so amazing. But my bank account was not different. And I had 3 times the work. So I suddenly remembered significantly thinking, there are 2 things that I need to focus on in the next 5 years. One is more profit, and 2 is more joy, just more joy. So not less time, because I love to work. So I'm not asking for less work,
right,
ever. I love work, provided I'm loving my work. So I wanted more joy, which means less stress, less responsibility, or less anxiety, or less drama, less.
Right.
So more joy for me was, I want to make more money doing this for myself, and I want to enjoy it. And I no longer care what it looks like to the world. Like, whether you see me in a small studio with 1 full-timer, or you see me in the big fancy studio with 10, I'm making more money with 1, and I'm happier and I'm joyful, and I don't need your validation to say, oh, she had this big, studio, because we so often live this life that looks successful, but it's not. And I don't want to be looking successful on the outside.
Right.
Success for me is having the profit and the income to do what I want, and waking up and working joyfully in that moment. So I feel like now I have reached that, and now I'm looking for more of that. Yeah.
Okay. And you said two things in there I want to ask you. So you said you thought of two things. You wanted more joy and you wanted, I'm sorry, what was the other one? I just blanked out.
Joy and more profit.
More
More
profit.
money and more happiness.
Yes.
Isn't
Yes.
it what everybody wants?
Yes.
I want to be happy and I want to get paid.
Yes. And so did you write those things down? How did you knew those were your goals? How did you, were they just kind of floating out there and you said, this is what I want, and it, work towards it? Or was that something you made a plan and kind of worked towards?
Okay. So the biggest thing for me was I no longer need validation. I'm not an educated, I don't have a high school education. My biggest thing was validating myself. I didn't need validation to provide somebody incredible service or product. I was already doing that, but I didn't believe it. And it took me a while to get around that I was successful and that it was okay to be, and that it is because I work hard, but not because I was trying to prove to the world that I could build something and that I was smart enough and that I was good enough to do it. I don't feel that way anymore. I don't need you to validate me. In fact, I don't need to tell anybody how much money I make or how successful a product or service is, because I enjoy so much now just achieving it without having to tell anybody or look for that validation, that outside validation that says you're good at this. I am good at this. It's okay. I don't need anybody else to look at me and think that. And if they think, oh, she doesn't have that big a business, that's okay too. It doesn't matter what I look like from the outside, as long as I have complete joy and that I really focus on profit. So for me, it came down to managing my money. I needed to keep more. I needed to save more. I needed my business to be really smart about what it was spending and how it was spending it. And I didn't need to look like I was this. It doesn't mean anything to me. Some of the wealthiest people I know don't look wealthy, and it's because they have a life that is wealthy. They don't need to look fancy. And the biggest thing, I can downsize my business. Here's the irony. It's bigger than it's ever been, but it doesn't look bigger than it's ever been. I don't think. I think it looks more streamlined, and I have people working for me that are like family, and I just am so incredibly blessed. And, that takes a lot of letting go.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the biggest things I've learned from you is you kind of have to get outside of what you think about yourself. You have to let it go. I've struggled with that myself. And I think the other thing you mentioned was, I feel like a lot of people, that competition, comparing yourself to other people, what everybody else is doing, when it doesn't really matter what everybody else is doing. It only matters what's kind of happening in here. So,
yeah. You came from corporate, so you go in, you compete for a corporate job, you get paid very well to do this corporate job, and then you spend the rest of your career being told that you're not measuring up to the numbers that you have to measure up to, specifically in sales.
Right.
I have friends that are constantly driving that corporate. Basically, I said to one of my corporate friends the other day, listen, if your corporate job said our target is 1.8 million and you come in at 1.5 and then you have to go into a sales meeting and tell them why you did not make target, do you honestly think they're ever going to set you a target that you're going to make?
Right.
I said, how will the company ever grow if they put low-hanging fruit in front of you and then you all meet target this month? Like, if you're meeting target, the target needs to be adjusted. I said, and all I ever see is you constantly feeling like you're not good enough meeting this target, because it's driving you. They're trying to drive you to the next target. Well, when you're self-employed, and particularly when you come from corporate, from the big money, you're getting paid big money, but you're also getting told every day that you don't measure up so that you work harder and harder. All of a sudden, you're self-employed. You get that 100%, but at the same time, nobody's telling you you're not good enough.
Right.
And you're suddenly starting all over again. And it is a huge shift in self-belief and self-value. But the truth is you own that now. When you reach your targets, you can put low-hanging fruit there and reach it. But the problem is you kind of don't. You still feel this pressure of this corporate job that paid well and that you're not getting this much money yet, but you have the ability to extend way past what you were earning in corporate. And and to achieve massive growth and reach your targets and feel really good about it. So it's really important that you set those self-targets, but that you actually celebrate achieving them.
Yeah,
Really big one.
and you have to give yourself a pass sometimes. I find that I don't. You have to say it's okay that I've only hit this level when you have this big dream and you're not there yet. But it changes. I find that working with folks that are only a year or two into their businesses, they can't see they can't see it yet because they haven't walked it yet. But it's going to change and it's going to be different, and they're going to change inside too. It changes who you are to run your own business.
Every aspect of who you are. Running your own business changes it is the most transformational journey of my life. Self-confidence, self-belief, just socially, just you evolve the way you talk, speak, talk about yourself, ownership, the path you walk, what you think about, where you spend your energy, everything shifts. And you have to really prepare yourself for that amount of shifting. Like, you can hold on as long as you want, but you have to let go in order to go further.
Yeah, love that. So a lot of people will look at you or will look at others in whatever industry they work in, and everybody kind of there's a guru in their industry that they see, gosh, I really want to achieve that. What would you say has been the biggest keys to your success?
Self-work,
Okay.
the work that I have to do on myself. You can spend all your energy working on your business, but when you're a solopreneur, you are your business. The way you attract people is your business. The way you feel about yourself when you walk into a networking meeting is going to set the tone for what you attract when you walk into that room. The way you dress, the way you speak, the way you feel, how open you are with money, how are you ready to receive money? Are you pricing yourself well? Are you valuing your time, your service? Are you putting more energy into trying to get paid or giving incredible service? Because if you're trying to get paid, you're going to be chasing money. And if you're giving incredible service, and it's inevitable that you're going to be confronted with the boundary of standing up for receiving money for that craft, and then you're going to learn how to balance that. I believe the more self-work I did, the more powerful my business and brand got. The more I believed in myself, the easier it was to walk into that room, put my hand out and say, I'm here to serve you. I'm not here to sell something to you. I'm here to be of service to you, and I understand that you need me. And when people need you, you're there to fill that service, and that is so much easier than trying to convince people to buy something from you when you feel like a fraud and you feel like you just aren't stepping up and owning yourself and your business and your brand. That's the work I did. That changed significantly. I'm not the smartest person in the room, and that's okay.
Right.
I respect intelligence and I respect mastery like nothing else. And I can sit with a whole room of intellectuals and ask questions all day and all night without even trying to be intellectual with them. I am not the most successful person in the room, but I can walk into a room with wealthy people and belong there because I'm spiritually evolved and I'm emotionally evolved, which a lot, by the way, of very wealthy and very masterful people are not. I hold my own space and I belong in every room, and so do you. And when you realize that, you're not less than other people, you're not less smart, you're not less important, you're not less, successful. You are just becoming. When you understand that, you can walk into any situation and be of service without being insubordinate to others. And that is powerful.
Very powerful. And I think that's, again, one of the biggest things I've learned from working with you is that everything in here affects everything out there. And you, coming from a corporate background, you're just kind of part of the machine. So you're not always focused on what's in your head. And becoming a business owner, that really forces you to do that because you're the only one. If you're not... Go ahead.
I read a study once that said in corporate, 75% of upper level, so CEOs, are engaged at 75%, and middle management is around 50%. 50% engagement.
Okay.
So you're only there half the time.
Right.
And when you're self-employed, you have to be there
All
all
the time.
And so your engagement shifts significantly. But here's the thing. If you're there 100% of the time and you don't like it's yours to build. It's yours to grow. It's yours to change. It's yours.
Yeah.
So fix it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, this weight of pressure will come onto your chest like you have never experienced before. That is also your choice.
Yeah, very much. I love that. So if you could go back in time and talk to Sue Bryce of, let's say, 25 years old, what would you tell her that you've learned today that she should or shouldn't do that would help her move along her path a little faster?
I would have just said that you don't have any comprehension of your value. And if you did, you would be walking a different path. I was so in the way of myself. Like everything I ever put in the way was what I thought people thought of me, or what I thought people would think of my lack of education, or what I thought they'd think of my clothes, or what I thought they would think of my body. I mean, I was always worried that I wasn't good enough to do this, instead of just walking in with confidence. And I don't know that you can give somebody confidence. I think it's something that they have to find within themselves. But the truth is if you understood the value of what you could give, you're just so valuable. And that took me literally years to work out.
Yeah, it's amazing. You know, I heard someone say not all that long ago that we all have a gift to give. And if we're not providing that gift to the people around us, then we're not living up to our value, because we were given something to give to people that makes them feel better. And, you know, that really hit home for me, especially with portrait photography, because sometimes what we give as a photographer is that view of themselves that they haven't seen sometimes ever, but at least in a very long time. So for them to look at themselves and love themselves, which is amazing to me how many people don't. And, you know, we get to a certain age and we stop loving ourselves, and that I have to keep reminding myself that no matter what you do for a living, is you were given a gift to give. So, yeah. You know, it's something you have to do. And when you do it and you love it, then the world is your oyster.
I always think that it's okay to give and give and give and get paid. As long as you can start. You see, I was an overgiver, but I didn't know how to receive money. And so my balance was out. I was always giving. So I was doing the right thing when I started my business, but I wasn't putting my hand out to receive the money for what I gave, because I didn't value what I was giving. So once you work out the balance of giving and receiving, which is a very hard thing to do. So I always say it like this: left for leaving, right for receiving. Okay, so you put your hands out, left for leaving, right for receiving. And you're always giving with your left hand and receiving with your right hand. And if they get out of balance, if you overgive and don't get paid, you'll go out of balance very quickly. And if you don't give, if you hold back and just try and receive, you're going to go out of balance very, very quickly. That balance with money management and valuing your time, your service, your product is huge.
Awesome. So in terms of branding, is there anything else that we haven't covered that you think people should know about how to build a great brand?
You are your brand.
Okay.
And what you don't understand is everything you post, everything you say, everything you feel, when you write those posts, people can feel like you're emitting pretty much everything, and you don't realize how much you're attracting. And set your energy and your intention when you do anything branding. Set your intention, because when you put it out there, and stay involved on the thread. So if you're marketing, branding, talking, selling on a thread, stay on it. It's important. because you're putting something out there and then walking away from it like it's not important. And everybody who has taken the time to respond to what you've posted, you need to connect with them. The more you relationship build, the more powerful your business is going to be. So if you're struggling to build a relationship, get yourself right.
Okay.
That's what you need to do. That is branding. Branding, the most powerful branding in the world is relationship building and connection. And everybody wants to be seen and everybody wants to be heard. Now, when you are branding, you think you're showing yourself, but you're not. You're showing what you can do for others. So when they respond to that branding, you must respond to them by seeing them, hearing them, engaging with them. Otherwise, you've missed the whole point. You're not here to show what you can do. You're here to show what you can give them. The more you understand that, the more powerful your brand is.
So again, kind of that gift that you have to give, as long as you're keeping that mindset, that's probably where you need to be.
Give it. Yeah.
All right.
Give
Awesome.
It.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. I loved talking to you. You're my guru. I appreciate you've done so much for me, and it's been such a wonderful. I wouldn't have my own business if I hadn't found you, because I would not have had that sort of push to be able to do the things I've been able to do. So thank you so much for that and everything.
You're so unique because you do have a corporate sales background, and most of the solopreneurs that we work with don't. Right. They're just creatives that never even experience selling or business. And now you also have the added benefit of not only having a career in corporate, but you have the added benefit of being in love with branding and showing people how they can do this, because the creative side of branding is difficult for a lot of people. So you have that double power, and I look forward to seeing how many people you can help grow.
Yeah, I've really found my joy in kind of marrying my two backgrounds, or my background with what I do now, is being able to give people the power of the visual presence and the ability to learn how to do what they don't feel like they know how to do. It's been really fun. All right, so thank you so much. All right, and I will talk to you later.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, bye.